Guys, it's Kelly here, and I'm back with another video from Marker Pop. Today I'm going to be using a new set from Hero Arts. This is called You're So Lovely, and it will be available in the store February 5th, so it is super new. I was lucky enough to get it from a friend of mine at CHA. So today we're going to be doing some no-line Copic coloring, and I guess it's just a little bit different because of the way that this image is created. So I'm using navy ink from Hero Arts. It's a mid-tone ink, but it's also, their formula is alcohol-based. That means you can color over it with Copics, and they work very nicely together. So I'm just doing some second-generation stamping. I'm stamping it off on a scrap piece of paper before I stamp it on my project. And then I'm going to do the leaves the same way using the lime green ink. I just think navy and lime green are a classic combination. I think they would be really... it's just really pretty together. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp out my leaves. I did end up adding an extra flower just because of the way the layout turned out. It looked too empty. So anyway, the way that this stamp is created, it's solid image stamp, and I think that it's beautiful the way it is, but if you watch my videos, you know I'm a Copic colorist, so I wanted to see what I could do to change their appearance with my Copics. So we're going to get into the Copic coloring now. I picked out some blues that I thought were going to be complementary to the navy that I was using, plus they're super bright and pretty. So I started with my lightest color, and here I'm outlining the flower, but I don't want to lose the edge that creates. I don't want it just to be a circle shape. So I'm doing like swoops around those outside petals. And then I'm just going to color in the whole center. And then I'm going to go in with my second darkest color, which is B24. And here what I'm doing, I mean, this is literally, it's so easy. I mean, it's just a series of lines because of the way that they drew this stamp. It's a cakewalk to do this and get really good dimension. So what I'm doing is I am adding that B24 to the bottom edge of the stamped portion. So I'm just doing quick, really quick strokes. I mean, you want it to match up to the line, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And in nature, flower petals aren't perfect. So anywhere that there is like a large gap between the half moon shapes that they've drawn, sometimes I kind of dip down a little bit to just fill it in. And I was only doing that with the B24. So the next darkest color is a B26, and for this one I'm going in the middle of the half moon. So above the B24 but below the top of the stamped portion. And you can already see here just with these three colors we're starting to get some real dimension, and the flower's starting to change its look. So like I said, it's just so I'm not blending, I'm not flicking, I'm not nothing. I'm drawing lines. That is it. And so if you are new to Copics, this stamp or stamps that are designed like this would be a great way to get really good results without a ton of practice. For my darkest color, I'm putting this right up to the outside edge on every portion of the stamped. Now you could mix it up where you did the darker more on the inside and didn't carry it all the way out to the petals that were on the outside. And then that way they would look like they had different depth. But because of the way that the flower is, once you start to fill it in solid, it looks like it's blooming out. And I thought that it looked better with the same dimension on each shape. So you can stop after one layer and it's still going to look pretty. I always go back over them. I go lightest to darkest and darkest to lightest. So I did the same thing that I always do just to get a little bit better blending. But like I said, I think it looked fine beforehand, so you could have just left it one layer and left it like that. And then the B24 again, and I'm going over anywhere I might have dipped down and drawn in a little bit more color. Some of them I did get too close, and I started to lose that highlight, and the highlight and the darkest shadows is what gives you depth, the contrast that they create from each other. So I did go back in later to try and fix that, and I'll talk about that when we get there. So, but otherwise, I'm doing the little lines, and then once I'm done with that, I will go back in with the lightest color. And I didn't want to color it all over again. I didn't want to lose the depth I had created. So I just went in with quick little half moon swipes. So some places it's darker, some places it's lighter, and I'm totally okay with that because I think that they came out pretty. I think that it looks like it has a lot of depth. So I went ahead and colored the other two. I did them exactly the same way. And then I'm going to go ahead and move on to the leaves. I know they're kind of hard to see, that second generation stamping, because that lime green is really light. But I actually started with a yellow here. Started with a Y00 because it plays really nicely with the YG01, which is the lightest yellow-green color that I have. And when you stamp the stamp, it has the leaf veins in it, but there was no way I was going to be able to follow those. So I just colored right over it and kind of did my own thing. I made them a little more striated with the markers that I had. So I'm putting down my lightest color, and then I'm coming in from both ends with the darkest colors. And after I do that and I get my darkest colors down, I start pulling it more toward the center with just the tip of the marker, very light pressure, so that there was like streaks in the leaf, just to give it some interest. I went ahead and colored all of those. So that portion of the cup of coloring is done. And then I will be doing, this is how I'm fixing that little highlight. I'm going back in with a white gel pen, and anywhere that it looked like it might have gotten too dark or I might have got a little heavy-handed, I just added a line of white to kind of break it up. It's not anything that's going to be super distracting from what we already have down there, and it will just break up those dark spots. I'm also going to hit it with a little bit of clear Wink of Stella because I love some shimmer. I didn't want to coat the whole flower in it again, so I'm just moving in that same half moon movement just to get some sparkle down on there. And I had no idea what I was going to do with my sentiment. I played around with a lot of different options, and finally I decided I was going to heat emboss it. So this is the title of the stamp set, You're So Lovely, and I thought that it would fit very nicely right in those flowers. I'm going to be heat embossing that with some silver embossing powder. I'm going to stamp it in Versamark ink. You saw me use my embossing buddy bag, and that's an anti-static tool so that stray powder doesn't stick a bunch of places. I'm going to go ahead and stamp that down in the Versamark. And then I don't have my silver in a container, so I just have like a little sheet I just fold in half, dump the silver on there, and then once I'm happy with the way it looks, gotten rid of all the strays that would be on the card, I just dumped it back into the bottle and then went ahead and heat set my sentiment, which is always like a little bit of magic, especially with the metallics. And metallics are kind of hard to see if it's not hitting the light right, so I wanted to add in just a little bit of a shadow to help it stand out for when the sentiment is flat, when the light isn't hitting it and it's not super shimmery. So I'm using an EK Success journaling pen to do that, and this will write over your embossing, so you need to be careful if you decide to try this about where your edges are. And then once I had all of that blocked out, I went in, if you've watched my videos before, you know I'm a huge fan of, doing the shadows. So I decided that I was going to, the black looked a little bit harsh, so I brought in some cool grays, and then I went ahead and outlined that just where the shadows were, just a very little bit, so it kind of blended out into the background, and I went from C5, C3 out to C1 so that it blended into the white really nicely. I'm not going to show you the whole thing because, well, to be honest, it's a little boring. So here everything's all done. I did end up trimming my panel down just a little bit, and I have cut a piece of like a bright navy cardstock. I think it's Basil. I can't remember the name of it. I'm sorry. And then just a very slim piece of silver glitter paper, and that is from Die Cuts with a View. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere that down to a white card base, and then I will just put the silver strip directly on top of that blue. It doesn't add much bulk. It's not like there's a huge difference in heights between them, and it's easier to me than trying to line them all up flat on the card base. So my edges were a little fuzzy, so I turned it around so the fuzzy edges were toward the colored panel. That way they wouldn't be noticeable. And then I'm just going to get my little scissors. I'm going to trim off the edges of that so everything's flush and good to go. And then that is, oh, the sequins. Yeah, of course. I can't make anything without sequins anymore. Who am I kidding? Is there anybody out there who's not using these clear sequins by Pretty Pink Posh? Because I put them on everything. All the things. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue those down. And then that is, they wouldn't stick. So, well, they were giving me a little bit of trouble. So in order to make sure that they stick, I just fill the centers with a little bit of glossy accents. They're clear. They don't take anything away from the shine when it dries. And then I know those puppies are not moving. And that's the card for today. So thank you so much for joining me. And I will catch you guys next time. Bye.